Nidus Breachcast, the world's first identity management app made exclusively for identity experts and product owners, is available in the iOS App Store now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nidus Anarchy series. I'm your host Adam, CIO and co-founder of Nidus, and today I want to talk about the arrest of Pavel Durov, the president of Telegram in France. So on August 24th, Pavel Durov landed in France, and French authorities immediately arrested him, and the whole internet blew up with Free Pavel. And the reason he was arrested, everyone was saying, was because he was refusing to cooperate with authorities, and they didn't like that he's running Telegram, which is a secret, messaging app, and therefore they're arresting him because France doesn't like free speech, and there was this whole bunch of stuff. So there was a lot of debate back and forth as what's going on, and we didn't really know too much because no one really ever said anything. So the French president, Emmanuel Macron, released a statement on Twitter about it all, and let's just read his statement because it's always better to take everything from the horse's mouth, right? So, I've seen false information regarding France following the arrest of Pavel Durov. France is deeply committed to freedom of expression and communication, to innovation, and to the spirit of entrepreneurship. It will remain so. In a state governed by the rule of law, freedoms are upheld with a legal framework, both on social media and in real life, to protect citizens and respect their fundamental rights. It is up to the judiciary in full independence to enforce the law. The arrest of President of Telegram on French soil took place as part of an ongoing judicial investigation. It is in no way a political decision. It's up to the judges to rule on the matter. And you'll notice the top comment is from Elon Musk saying, it would be helpful to the global public to understand more details about why he was arrested. And that really is the entire thing. It was Pavel was arrested. Everyone freaked out. No one really knew what it was. Everyone was assuming what it was, and we just didn't really know. I'm not a big fan of what Emmanuel Macron said, because basically he's just saying like, oh, we definitely support free speech and all this fun stuff, but we just arrested him so the jury and judges can figure it out. It's like, what? That's ridiculous. But now we have a lot more insight as to what the charges are, what's going on. Pavel actually has been released on bail. He's actually out free in France. He's not allowed to leave France, though, for the duration. And he's got to check in with, apparently, he's got a parole officer he's got to check in with every 2 weeks to make sure, that he's still in France. I'm sure he's a flight risk. They've probably confiscated his passport. I mean, this dude is ridiculously loaded and connected. So let's go in through some of the details as to what we know for sure. And again, this is coming from TechCrunch. Fairly reputable source, so we'll just go with what they say. So France formally charges Telegram founder Pavel Durov over organized crime on messaging app. After spending 4 days in police custody, the founder and CEO of messaging app Telegram, Pavel Durov, was put under formal investigation in France on Thursday for a wide range of criminal charges. He was released on a $5 million bail, and he's got to check in every 2 weeks. The list of charges that happened are this. The main charges are accusations of running a company that has been complicit in storing and distributing child sexual abuse material and facilitating drug trafficking and organized fraud and other illegal transactions. He's also facing charges concerning the registration of Telegram's cryptographic features, among other complaints. So let's kind of break this down. When you hear that, you're like, oh my God, this dude is a horrible, horrible person. He's involved with gangs and child sexual abuse and cryptographic features, whatever that is, right? So what's actually happening? So he's not directly involved with this. What's actually happening is they're saying the system that you own and operate is allowing others to facilitate in these operations. And when our police are contacting you saying, hey, we need the identities of these people, you're not responding and giving us what we want, so therefore we're arresting you. This has been going on since the dawn of the internet. And every social media account, every social media platform out there has gone through this with various governments from around the world, where any type, even Apple, like not even just social media, any type of tech conglomerate that is big enough. I mean, Jesus, just look at Facebook and MySpace and all these things back in the day, right? They're huge, and people are going to do illegal activities. It's just like saying, oh, I'm sure no one's using the U.S. Postal Service for illegal activities. Of course they are. I'm sure no one's using regular fiat U.S. dollar cash for illegal activities. Of course they are. So every different type of system out there is being used for illegal activities. The real problem is that when the authorities contact the owner of these platforms and say, hey, we need all this information that's going on about this investigation we're doing, if they don't give it to them, that's when the governments freak out and say, oh, well, then you're complicit and you're helping and we're going to charge you directly. This has always been threats by various governments to different social media platforms. This is the first big time where they've taken action and really scared the crap out of everybody. So in the United States, there's actually a massive act that protects all online systems from this happening. Back in 1996, the United States passed a law that basically granted immunity to the hosting provider, saying you're not responsible for the content that you're hosting because otherwise you'd be complicit every time someone does something illegal on your platform. And if that were to take place, no one would ever host any content of any kind, in which, like Instagram, Google, Meta, Facebook, MySpace, nothing. If you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to post something online, that would never exist because if this law didn't exist. So what it is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, the CDA, which was passed in 96, which says, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. Basically saying, if someone posts something to your site, you're not responsible for what they post, they are. And that allows everyone to say, sweet, I'm going to host your email. I'm going to host your pictures. I'm going to host your whatever because you're responsible for your content, not me. And that's why the internet has exploded to the way it is. Now, what France is saying, I don't give a shit about any of that. And that's something you kind of got to take into fact too, which is France is not the United States of America. They don't have those laws. They have their own laws. Whether they like freedom of speech or not, whatever, you're in their country. You got to play by their rules. So I'm not really going to say much about what he should or shouldn't do and whether or not France is right or wrong. It's just every country has their own laws. But the whole thing was, what was he actually being held for? So now they're trying to charge him with basically that. They're basically saying, you're responsible for all the content on your system because you're not giving us what we want. And if you follow the news in our country, you'll see that every major tech company out there has received all kinds of subpoenas and had to testify in front of court and all kinds of other crazy stuff because they would only give over certain information. They wouldn't get over any. One of the biggest ones is actually Apple. They have pushed back harder on the U.S. government more than anyone, saying we're not giving you anything unless you absolutely require it, and it's a very specific mandate. Because another thing that governments are doing, which I have no idea if it's part of this or not, we'll find out later, maybe as the trial happens, but a lot of the governments out there in the world, the bigger ones, pressure tech companies to try and build a backdoor into their encryption systems so that they can have access to the data in a raw, clear text form. And the majority of the time, the tech giants are big enough to push back and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm only going to give you information if you have an actual warrant and you have all this other information. Then we'll give you what we can, but we're not building backdoors into our system, which is amazing that governments don't seem to understand. If you build a backdoor for someone, you're building a backdoor for everybody. If a backdoor exists, anyone can figure it out and get into it, which is why you never want to build a backdoor. So Telegram also has the feature for encrypted communication. And this is where I think things are going to get a little hairy. So when you open up Telegram and you talk to people, your communication is not protected. It is not encrypted. It's not secure in any way, shape, or form unless you do a direct peer-to-peer communication over the phone platform. When you set up an encrypted chat explicitly, and I think I've covered this in a previous podcast as well, that communication is encrypted. And most likely what's happening is 2 keys are on each device, and then that communication then takes place, and Telegram doesn't have those keys, so they probably can't even decrypt the traffic, even if they wanted to. So what's most likely happens is the governments are saying, hey, you need some type of backdoor. They're like, no, I'm not going to do it. And the government's like, we don't like you. If you land here, we're going to arrest you. And they arrested him. That's kind of where it goes. Now, the weird one is Telegram's cryptographic features. So what this really comes down to is Telegram released their own cryptocurrency. And this cryptocurrency allows you to buy digital assets and stuff within Telegram. But then through that cryptocurrency, you can buy another cryptocurrency. And that one you can actually trade on an exchange, which then you can convert into a fiat currency and deposit into a bank account. So now they're saying, oh, money laundering. So they're really going after them pretty hard. And everything that happens here is really going to set a precedent for every other communication platform in the world with regards to France. Let's just keep in mind, this is France, not the United States, not China, nowhere else, just France. So this is going to basically say, hey, everyone else, you can or cannot operate. If you look just recently, there's been crazy crackdowns on social media platforms. Twitter just shut down their entire Brazil operations because of what's going on down there. That's a whole nother topic. If you want to look into that, you can still access Twitter there, but it's probably being blocked at the nation firewall. But their operations center, all the people that were working there for Twitter, all gone, or X, whatever you want to call it, all gone because of the crazy laws that they were saying that they had to turn over this data, and Musk said, go F yourself. So this is going to be a very interesting trial to follow. They're expecting this to take over a year, which means Pavel's going to be in France for a year. Who knows what that means? But I was actually just in Paris 3 times within the last year, which is weird because I really never went there too much. And it's kind of scary to see stuff like this happen because they're basically saying play by our rules. Otherwise, we're going to arrest you and force you to play by our rules. So, I mean, hey, when in Rome, you're in their country. You kind of got to follow by their rules. And from some other stuff that I've read too, I believe basically Pavel was warned, like, hey, if you come here, we are going to arrest you. And he went there and landed anyway. So it's kind of like a snub to them. So I don't know. There's a lot going on. But in the end, it's crazy because they're trying to hold him responsible for what other people are doing on his platform, and it's a secure communication platform. The whole point is to maintain privacy. If you just give up everyone because someone says, hey, I want to have up this stuff, it's no longer private, your platform is toast. I mean, just look at Lavasoft. That's the biggest one that I always like to go back to. So Lavasoft was an email platform, kind of like Proton Mail, where it was an anonymous email system where you didn't have to know who anybody was, and everything was secured, and it was all safe to send emails back and forth, and it was all really secured and anonymous email. And the government came after Lavasoft and said, hey, if you don't give us the access, and if you don't give us all this information, we're going to bust you publicly. We're going to bust you, we're going to take you to jail, and all this kind of stuff. The founder of Lavasoft said, okay, screw it. And he pulled the plug, and he just shut the entire system down and said, screw it. I'm not even going to do this anymore because I'm not giving everything up, but I'm also not going to I don't want to go to prison. So he just said, screw it, and turned it off. And that's sad because he didn't do anything wrong. You're also seeing this a lot with this Dotcom guy, right? Like, he's controversial as hell. And this gets into the whole freedom of speech stuff too, because it's like, if Apple can do it, why can't they? But freedom of speech is always great when it's nice, safe stuff. No one really cares about that. But when it's the dodgy stuff, that's when everyone's like, oh, we shouldn't allow that. But it's like, in my opinion, I'm a purist, and it's freedom of speech. You should be able to say whatever you want. Either way, it doesn't really matter in this country. Well, New Zealand is extraditing Dotcom back to the US for charges for Megaupload from forever ago because of all the content he hosted, which is crazy because that's the law right there I just read to you that the United States government passed and still exists today that allows Google to operate. Like, you're telling me there's no illegal files in Google Drives around the world? Of course there is. Is Google getting prosecuted? No. Why? Because it wasn't as egregious as it was with Dotcom, who's actually come on. Everyone used Megaupload for one reason, right? To pirate software. So I understand, like, there's a very interesting fine line here between, oh, well, Google, they're playing it safe and they're doing everything right and they're going by the things, where Dotcom was just basically giving everyone the middle finger and taking off to New Zealand and telling everyone to piss off. I don't know. I think if the law says you're not responsible, then you're not responsible. But the United States government feels differently. So we're going to see how that trial plays out. That's going to be even more interesting, in my opinion, because that actually dictates how things are going to be handled here in this country. So that's going to be another one to keep an eye on. But in the meantime, I'm really curious to see what happens with this Pavel case. Again, we really don't know everything, right? Like, we're not part of the investigating team in France. We are not the lawyers for either one of these people. We do not know all the information that they have. We don't know everything that they're actually charging with. We have kind of like the superficial stuff. This is still a lot better than just, hey, we've detained him and we're not telling anyone why. Like, that was pretty crazy. This is going to be precedent setting for other countries and other media platforms around the world and how internet takes place with regards to cooperating with governments and turning over information to people. So I don't know. This is definitely going to be a case to see. We'll see what happens. Nidus has just created the first iOS app made exclusively for identity management professionals. It's called Nidus Breachcast, and you can download it now. It's amazing. We have real-time updates of all the latest breaches that are occurring, CVEs as they come out real-time, really pertaining just to identity management. We have media that's going on. This podcast, we're going to be bringing in a lot more others as well. And we even have a complete vendor list of all the identity management vendors and all their products, so you can find out exactly where to download their software, all the documentation. And what's even more awesome is an identity management glossary. All those crazy words and acronyms that we can never remember, they're all listed in there for you. No ads, just pure information to make your life simple.